Good morning, guys. So today we will discuss the central dogma, how it happens, and what is the process of replication, transcription, and translation. So first, how the code was cracked. So there are three major advances set the stage for our present knowledge of protein biosynthesis. So the first key advance happened in the early 1950s. Paul Zamechnik and his colleagues designed a set of experiments to investigate where in the cell proteins are synthesized. So they injected a radioactive amino acid in the rats and at a different time intervals after the injection and removed the liver, homogenized, fractionated the homogenate by centrifugation and examined the subcellular fractions for the presence of radioactive protein. When hours or days were allowed to elapse after injection of the labeled amino acids, all the subcellular fractions contained labeled proteins. However, when only minutes had elapsed, labeled protein appeared only in a fraction containing small ribonucleoprotein particles. So these particles are visible in animal tissues using electron microscopy and were therefore identified as the site of protein synthesis from amino acid, and this is now what we call as the ribosomes. So the next key advance happened when Malon and Zamechnik found out that the amino acids were activated when incubated with ATP and the systolic fraction of liver cells. So the amino acids became attached to a heat-soluble RNA of the type that had been discovered and characterized by Robert Hawley and later called as the transfer RNA to form the amino acid transferase RNA. So the enzymes that catalyze this process are the amino acid tRNA synthetases. And so the third advanced demand resulted from Francis Crick reasoning on how the genetic information encoded in the four-letter language of nucleic acids and that could be translated in a 20-letter language of proteins. So a small nucleic acids could serve the role of an adapter, one part of the adapter molecule binding in a specific amino acid and another part recognizing the nucleotide sequence encoding the amino acid in an mRNA. So this idea was soon verified. The transfer RNA adapter translates the nucleotide sequence of a messenger RNA into the amino acid sequence of a polypeptide. So the overall process is referred as the translation. What is genetic code? So the central dogma of molecular biology states that the flow of genetic information in living cells is from DNA to RNA to proteins. So cells use a system called genetic code to translate the sequence of nucleotides on the RNA molecule into the corresponding sequence of amino acids on the polypeptide. So what are the four major features of genetic code? So the code is a triplet. So a codon is a triplet of nucleotides that codes for a specific amino acid. So one codon is equals to one amino acid. So codons provide the key that allows these two languages to be translated into each other. And each codon corresponds to a single amino acid, and the full set of codon is called as our genetic code. So a specific first codon in the sequence establishes the reading frame in which new codon begins every 3 nucleotide residues. So there are two types of codons with functions. So the initiation codon or the AUG, it is the most common signal for the beginning of polypeptide in all cells in addition to coding for MET residues in internal positions of the polypeptides. And the other one is the termination codons, the UAA, UAG, and the UGA, also called as the stop codons or nonsense codons. So they normally signal the end of polypeptide synthesis and do not code for any known amino acid. So why is it a sequence of 3 and not a sequence of 1 or 2 nucleotides? So there are 20 amino acids but only 4 nucleotides. So a single nucleotide cannot be used, and as well as the pairs of nucleotides, because it will only produce 16 unique possibilities. So therefore, to express all 20 amino acids, we must use 3 because 4 times 4 times 4 is equals to 64 possibilities. So the next feature of the genetic code is that the code does not overlap and non-punctuated. So in a non-overlapping code, codons do not share nucleotides. So the codes are read one after another in a continuous manner. A non-overlapping code provides much more flexibility in the triplet sequence of neighboring codons and therefore in the possible amino acid sequence designated by the code. So the genetic code in all living system is known to be non-overlapping. Laging tatandaan, non-overlapping. And also, the genetic code is degenerative. So an amino acid may be specified by more than one codon, so the code is described as degenerate. So this does not suggest that the code is flawed, although an amino acid may have or two more codons. Each codon specifies only one amino acid. And the degeneracy of the code is not uniform. So in a genetic code of a human, there are 64 unique codons. So 3 of them are stop codons, which is the UAA, UAG, and UGA, while the remaining 61 codons code for 20 amino acids. And the last feature of the genetic code is that it is unambiguous and almost universal. So genetic code is specific. A specific codon always codes for the same amino acid, and it will not code for more than one amino acid. So the genetic code is almost universal because it specifies the same amino acids in all organisms with only few exceptions. So did you know that on average, humans are 99% biochemically similar to each other? So what is central dogma? So the central dogma of molecular biology explains the flow of genetic information from DNA to RNA to make a functional product, which is a protein. So the central dogma suggests that the DNA contains the information needed to make all the proteins, and the RNA are the one that um, carries the information to the ribosome. So the central dogma states that the pattern of information that occurs frequently in our cells is happens in three processes. So we have the replication, which is from existing DNA to make a new DNA, then followed by transcription or from DNA to RNA, and lastly is a translation, which is RNA to make new proteins. So DNA replication. So DNA replication is semi-conservative. So there are two identical double helices are formed from one original parental double helix. And in each new DNA, double helix conserves half of the original sequence. So Matthew Meselson and Franklin Stahl in 1957 found out and demonstrated that the semi-conservative mechanism of DNA replication with a series of density shift experiments. So they labeled replicating DNA from bacteria with the heavy form of nitrogen and trace its pattern of distribution. So the higher density nitrogen was incorporated into one strand of each daughter double helix. So let's talk about the overview of the DNA replication. So the parent DNA molecule and parental strands unwind and separate at several points. Each parental strand provides a template for DNA polymerase to bind complementary bases, so adenine with thymine and guanine with cytosine. And the sugar phosphate backbones of daughter strands are close. So DNA replication occurs during the S phase of the cell cycle prior to cell division. So when the DNA is replicated, it separates and hydrogen bonds holding the base pairs together breaks. So there are two identical nucleotide chains are built from one and as the bases form pairs. So a site where DNA is locally open is called as the replication fork. So what are the steps in DNA replication? So the helicase, where's my pointer? Yan. So the helicase binds to origin and separates the strand. So this one. So binding protein keeps strands apart, and the primase makes a short stretch of RNA on the DNA template. So this one and this one. And the DNA polymerase adds DNA nucleotides to the RNA primer. And the DNA polymerase proofreading activity checks and replaces incorrect bases. So continuous strand synthesis continues in a 5 to 3 prime direction. So 5 to 3 prime direction, 5 to 3 prime direction. So this continuous synthesis produces Okazaki fragment on the 5 prime to 3 prime template. So this one is called the Okazaki fragment. So enzyme removes the RNA primers. The ligase seals the sugar phosphate backbone. Yan. So there are 5 enzymes that are involved in DNA replication. So we have the helicase, or the one that unwinds parental double helix. And we also have the binding proteins that stabilizes separate strands. The primase, or the one that adds short primer to template strand. Then we also have DNA polymerase that binds nucleotides to form new strands. Then lastly, the ligase, or the one that joins the Okazaki fragments and seals other nicks in sugar phosphate backbone. So this is the helicase, and the binding proteins, this one, the primase, this one, this one. Then we have the DNA polymerase and the ligase. Yan. So what is replication bubble? So DNA replication occurs simultaneously along the 150 million nucleotides occurs in an average human chromosome. So the sites of replication resemble bubbles that coalesce as the daughter double helices form. So RNA transcription. So we're on the second process of central dogma. So it is the process by which the cell passes down the genetic information stored in the DNA to another biological molecule called as the ribonucleic acid. So the advantage of using the RNA molecule is that the process decreases the possibility of damaging or mutating the original DNA molecule. Since the RNA is not passed down to the offspring, the cell can easily recycle any damaged or mutated RNA molecule. So what is the steps in transcription? So our first step is initiation. So it begins with binding of RNA polymerase to a region in the DNA known as the promoter. So the promoter region is a special sequence of nucleotides that signals the RNA polymerase to join the protein complex and begin synthesis of RNA strand. So the promoter consensus sequence is also also called as the TATA, or the Hugness box. So it is centered about 25 nucleotides to the left of the transcription start site. So another consensus sequence is found between 70 and 80 nucleotides to the left as well as and called Kaat box. So in order to enhance initiation, there are probably thousands of specific DNA sequences away from the transcription start site. So toward both 5' and 3' ends. And it's called as the enhancers or response elements that binds a specific protein called activators, in which it interacts with the transcription complex to stimulate the transcription. So this is the promoter, and we have the RNA polymerase. Next is the elongation. So if you can see the picture, there is unwinding uncoiling of the strand, and there will be a template strand that is connected to the one strand of the DNA. So once RNA polymerase unwinds the DNA, it creates a bubble. Yeah, this is the bubble that exposes the single strands of DNA. Only one of these DNA strands is actually used to synthesize the RNA molecule. So the strand that serves as template for RNA synthesis is called as the template strand. So the DNA strand complementary to the template is called the non-template. This one. This one is the non-template strand or coding strand. So the DNA polymerase can only read our DNA in 3' to 5' direction. So the transcription process starts with 5' to 3' direction. So next is we have the termination. So the elongation of the single-stranded RNA chain continues until a termination signal is reached. So termination can be intrinsic or spontaneous, or can be dependent upon the participation of a protein known as the Rho factor. So this leads to stop transcription and the DNA double helix to zip up again. So when this happens, babalik ulit yung strand and hihiwalay na yung a new RNA transcript, and the bubble will be removed in the DNA. So RNA processing. So a newly synthesized RNA molecule is called primary transcript. So one type of RNA molecule that is formed during transcription is called the messenger RNA. So it is used as a template for synthesizing proteins in the cytoplasm of the cell. So the mRNA that is formed directly after transcription has not yet undergone the necessary modification processes, and therefore in the nucleus, before the RNA molecule can enter the cytoplasm, this precursor messenger RNA must undergo 3 post-transcriptional modifications. So from pre-mRNA to a mature mRNA. So what are the post-transcriptional modifications? So after the transcription, so there will be a new modified RNA template. So what happens next? So the eukaryotic messenger RNAs are capped at the 5' end. So in the nucleus, the 5' end of the pre-mRNA is altered by the attachment of a guanosine nucleotide by a 5' triphosphate linkage. So the guanosine nucleotide is weakly methylated at the 7th position to form the 7-methyl guanosine. So one important function of the cap is to protect the messenger RNA from ribonucleases. So it also binds a specific cap binding complex of the proteins and participates in binding the messenger RNA to the ribosome to initiate the process that we know as the translation. So it only means that the 5' cap, this one, the cap, protects the mRNA from degradation during protein synthesis. And also, it stabilizes the messenger RNA and aids it in transport across the nuclear membrane. So, at the start, we have 5 cap, and on the end, we have poly-tail. Poly-A tail. Next one is that eukaryotic mRNAs have a distinctive 3' structure. So, una, cap at the 5' end. Now we have distinctive 3' end structure. So the 3' end structure of the pre-mRNA is removed and a series of adenosine nucleotides are added. So most eukaryotic mRNAs have a string of 80 to 250 A residues, making a polyadenine tail or poly-A tail. So the poly-A tail and its associated proteins provide stability and protect the mRNA from enzymatic destruction and degradation. So both the cap and the tail protects the mRNA from degradation. RNA catalyzes the splicing of introns. So there are four types of introns. Group 1 are self-splicing and as well as the group 2, while the group 3 is also known as the spliceomal introns. Their removal occurs within and it is catalyzed by a large protein complex known as the spliceosome. Then we have the group 4 introns, or they are splicing reaction requires ATP and an endonuclease. So it requires an energy so that it will work and do its job. So RNA catalyzes the splicing of introns again. So not all regions of pre-mRNA molecules code for proteins. So those regions that code for proteins are called exons, and those that do not are called introns. So the introns in the primary RNA are cut, so they are spliced together with the exons to form a mature functional RNA. So the introns are removed, and only the exons are stays and to form the mature mRNA. So in eukaryotic mRNA, most exons are less than 1,000 nucleotides long, with many in the 100 to 200 nucleotide size range, encoding stretches of 30 to 60 amino acids with a longer polypeptide. And the introns vary in size from 50 to 20,000 nucleotides. So it only means that not all regions of pre-mRNA molecules don't code for proteins does not code for protein synthesis. So RNA-dependent synthesis of RNA and DNAs, or reverse transcriptase, produces DNA from viral RNA. So RNA-dependent DNA polymerase are also called as a reverse transcriptase, and they were first discovered in retroviruses, so which must convert their RNA genomes into double-stranded DNA as part of their life. So these enzymes transcribe by the viral RNA into DNA, a process that can be used experimentally to form complementary DNA. So the retroviruses typically have three genes: the GAG, a name derived from the historical designation group associated antigen, the POL, and the ENV. So the reverse transcriptase catalyze three different reactions. We have the RNA-dependent DNA synthesis, RNA degradation, and DNA-dependent DNA synthesis. So one of the best example of a virus that is retrovirus is our HIV, or human immunodeficiency virus. So many transposons, retroviruses, and introns may have a common evolutionary origin. So retrotransposons encode an enzyme homologous to the retroviral reverse transcriptase, and therefore their coding regions are flanked by LTR sequences. They transpose from one position to another in the cellular genome by means of an RNA intermediate, using reverse transcriptase to make a DNA copy of the RNA. And it's followed by an integration of the DNA at the new site. So many eukaryotic transposons are related to the retroviruses, and therefore their mechanism of transposition includes an RNA intermediate. So after transcription, then we have translation, then there it will be affected. So there will be reverse transcription of RNA to DNA. So RNA na bumalik pa to DNA. Then magkakaroon po ng panibagong synthesis of DNA strand. Then there will be insertion of retrotransposon DNA. So telomerase is a specialized reverse transcriptase. So telomerase is the enzyme that synthesizes the telomere ends of linear chromosome. It's a specialized reverse transcriptase that contains an internal RNA template. It contains both RNA and protein components. So the RNA component is about 115 nucleotides long and contains about 1.5 copies of the appropriate CYAX telomere repeat. So this region of the RNA acts as a template for synthesis of the TXGY strand of the telomere. So telomerase thereby acts as a cellular reverse transcriptase that provides the active site for RNA-dependent DNA synthesis. So unlike retroviral reverse transcriptase, telomerase copies only a small segment of RNA that it carries within itself. And some viral RNA are replicated by RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. So RNA-dependent RNA polymerase is an enzyme that catalyzes the replication of RNA from an RNA template. So the replicases of RNA bacteriophage are templates specific for the viral RNA. So the RNA replicase of most RNA bacteriophage has a molecular weight of 210,000 and consists of 4 subunits. One subunit is the product of the replication gene encoded by the viral RNA and has the active site for replication. So the other 3 subunits are host proteins normally involved in host cell protein synthesis. And so the RNA world hypothesis is now supported by at least 5 lines of evidence. The RNA catalyst exists. So RNA thus clearly has the capacity to both store information and catalyze reaction. The wide range of reaction for which RNA catalyst has been developed is sufficient to form the basis of a primordial metabolic system. There are numerous extant RNA that are likely vestige of an RNA world, and an RNA catalyst is responsible for the synthesis of protein. And lastly, RNA catalysts with the capacity for self-replication are coming to light in the laboratory. So next natin is the steps in translation. So this is the last step. So activation, first is the activation of amino acids. So for the synthesis of a polypeptide with a defined sequence, there are 2 fundamental chemical requirements that must be met. So the first one is the carboxyl group of each AA must be activated to facilitate formation of a peptide bond, and a link must be established between each AA and the information in the mRNA that encodes it. So these requirements are met by attaching the amino acid to a transfer RNA in the first stage of protein synthesis. So attaching the right amino acid to the right transfer RNA is critical. And this reaction takes place in the cytosol, not on the ribosome. Then we have initiation. So once the pre-mRNA undergoes the proper modifications in the nucleus, it becomes the messenger RNA that travels through the nuclear pores and into the cytoplasm of the cell. So once inside the cytoplasm, with the help from the protein called initiation factors, the small subunits bind to the 5' end of the mRNA, this one, the 5' end. The small subunit slides along the mRNA until it reaches the nucleotide sequence 5' AUG 3'. This one. So what is the purpose of 5' AUG 3' sequence? So it serves as a start codon, and it signals for transfer RNA to bring the amino acid methionine. So laging tatandaan, 5' AUG 3' sequence is considered as our start codon. So once the transfer RNA with methionine binds to the start codon, the large subunit binds to the small subunit, thereby forming the ribosome. So this setup is called the initiation or the ribosome complex. The 3' end of the transfer RNA contains a nucleotide sequence that binds to the appropriate amino acid. So the transfer RNA synthetase catalyzes the binding of the transfer RNA to the appropriate amino acid. And the next step is elongation. So once the ribosome complex has been formed and the transfer RNA that carries the methionine is in the P site, the ribosome can now begin sliding along the mRNA. The next amino acid transfer RNA that carries the next amino acid is brought in to the A site. So once the P and A sites are filled, peptidyl transferase catalyzes the formation of the peptide bond between the amino acids in P site and A site. So when the peptide bond is formed, the amino acid detaches from the transfer RNA in the P site. Then we also have translocation. So in the next step, the ribosome complex moves 3 nucleotides in the 5' to 3' direction along the mRNA. This moves the transfer RNA into the P site, into the E site, and relocates the transfer RNA carrying the growing polypeptide into the P site. So E site, P site, and A site. So it will move the transfer RNA from P site to E site. So once the A site is empty, the process can repeat itself to add another amino acid. So this continues until the polypeptide chain is complete. Then after elongation, we have the termination and ribosome recycling. So the completion of the polypeptide chain is signaled by a termination codon in the mRNA. So the new polypeptide is released from the ribosome aided by protein called release factors will bind to the alpha or the A site. So this will ultimately cause the polypeptide chain to break off the transfer RNA into the P site. So the ribosome complex will then associate and end translation. Eventually, the ribosome is recycled for another round of protein synthesis. Then we have folding and post-translational processing. So the ribosome uses the genetic code to translate the messenger RNA molecule into a polypeptide. So once the polypeptide is synthesized, it usually modified before it actually becomes a mature and active polyprotein. So there are 3 types. We have the phosphorylation, methylation, and glycosylation. So when we say phosphorylation, certain amino acids such as serine, threonine, and tyrosine can be modified via phosphorylation by enzyme called protein kinases. So they are crucial in the cell cycle and signal transduction. While methylation, so methyl groups can be added onto amino acids by an enzyme called methyltransferase. So it usually increases the hydrophobic character of the amino acid. And lastly, glycosylation. So adding sugar components affect the protein conformation and folding. Then we also have proteolysis. Certain proteins are synthesized in their zymogen form in order to activate them. Enzymes called proteases break down certain peptide bonds. Then we also have N-acetylation or the transfer of acetyl group onto the nitrogen on amino acid. This important in gene expression, while lipidation is the process of adding lipid components in the polypeptide. So increases hydrophobicity character, which in turn increases the protein affinity to the membranes. So protein structure. So proteins fold into one or more 3D shape or conformation. So there are 4 levels of protein structure: the primary structure, secondary, the tertiary, and the quaternary. So this one is the primary, then followed by secondary structures. This is tertiary, and this is quaternary. So primary structure, the sequence of amino acid is in a polypeptide chain, where secondary structure, loops, coil sheets, or other shapes formed by hydrogen bond between neighboring carboxyl and amino acid, and followed by tertiary or 3-dimensional form shaped by bond between R groups, interaction between R groups and water. And lastly, quaternary or protein complex formed by bonds between separate polypeptides. So protein folding. So proteins begin to fold after the amino acid chain winds away from the ribosome. So the first amino acids in a protein secreted in a membrane is called forms a signal sequence. So it leads it and the ribosome into a pore in the ER membrane and not found on proteins synthesized on free ribosomes. Then we also have chaperone proteins, or that the one that stabilizes partially folded regions in their correct form and prevent a protein from getting stuck in an intermediate form. So develop into drugs to treat diseases that result from misfolded proteins. So what happens if there been misfolding in the proteins? Misfolded proteins are tagged with ubiquitin. So this is the ubiquitin molecules. So the protein with more than one tag is taken to a proteasome, a tunnel-like multiprotein structure. So as the protein moves through the tunnel, it is straightened and dismantled. So this is what happens. So nadi-disintegrate. Ini-straight siya, then they will be dismantled at the end. So proteasomes also destroyed properly folded proteins that are in excess or no longer needed. So protein misfold from a mutation or by having more than one conformation. So a mutation alters the attractions and repulsions between parts of the protein. So prion protein can fold into any of several conformations, and moreover, it can be passed on to other proteins upon contact, propagating like an infectious agent. So in several disorders that affects the brain, the misfolded proteins are aggregated. All but Huntington disease are genetically heterogenic. That is, abnormalities in different proteins cause similar syndromes. So, for example, the Alzheimer's disease, the misfolded protein found is the amyloid beta precursor protein and the tau proteins. For familial amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, there has been problem with superoxide dismutase and the TDP43. For frontotemporal dementia, the tau proteins and TDP43, Huntington disease, the huntingtin, Parkinson, the alpha-synuclein, and also with Lewy body dementia. For PKU, there has been a problem in phenylalanine hydroxylase, and for prion diseases in prion protein. So prion disease. So they have been found in 85 species. An example is crepey in the sheep, and in the humans, it is the Kuru and the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. So this is the end of our lecture. Thank you so much for listening. Our exam will commence next week, so I hope you study well, and thank you so much for listening.